real embarrassment for Kamala Harris, the American vice president, the Democrat candidate in next month's election. It's such a flake that she's been caught out not just stealing other people's policies, but even stealing the memories of Martin Luther King and passing them off as her own. No wonder her campaign is now in deep strife. A plagiarism expert has gone through Harris's book on justice and found whole slabs were plagiarised from Wikipedia or copied word for word from things like some organisation's press release. But this expert says even worse is how she copied Martin Luther King. Now, nearly 60 years ago, King, the civil rights hero, gave an interview to Playboy and told about a policeman finding a black girl who was lost at a freedom rally. And he asked her, what do you want? And the little girl looks him straight in the eye and says, freedom. She couldn't even pronounce it, but she knew, said King. Well, what an amazing coincidence. Kamala Harris gave an interview to Elle magazine that steals this anecdote. She tells how she was fussing as a young girl, and my mother, she's like, baby, what do you want? And I just looked at her and I said, freedom. The Kamala Harris. Even her childhood memories are phony. Joining me is Sean Spicer, the first White House spokesman of President Donald Trump. Sean Spicer, great to see you again. Kamala Harris is now accused even of ripping off a childhood anecdote from Martin Luther King. Has she no shame? His anecdote of a little girl responding to her mother who said, you know, what do you want? Freedom. And now it appears as Kamala Harris's personal memory. I mean, what do you make of this?
You know, Andrew, the other day, Kamala Harris appeared on our program, The View, which was supposed to be a softball interview, and they asked her, name something that's different between you and Biden, and she couldn't. And now I realize that she really can't. They both plagiarize. I mean, it's not just their policies. They're both serial plagiarists. So they really do have a lot in common. But, I mean, my goodness, 22 days out of an election, this is just, I mean, she cannot catch a break. I'm not getting upset about that by any means, but it is like they could not be running a worse end of the campaign if they tried.
Oh, you make her sound like a victim. She cannot catch a break. I mean, you've got to actually have goods to sell before someone will buy them, Sean. I mean, this is just extraordinary. An empty vessel, unbelievable. No policies and no anecdotes of her own. I mean, you said from the start that she was a weird candidate, but did you ever think that she was quite this empty?
When you hear, I've always thought that she is inauthentic. If you talk to people that know her and you look at her policy evolution, she'll say anything to anyone at any time to get their support. And so it's not surprising, but I didn't realize the extent to which she's going on. And these are where, you know, these sort of issues that come up is where, you know, candidates might get away with things for years. They talk about, oh, well, they were vetted in the past. They ran for the Senate. They ran for governor. There's nothing like running for president, though, that when you have outside groups that go through your record and your yearbooks and your college thesis, et cetera, she was going to get caught at some point. You saw the accusations come out about Doug Emhoff and the abuse that he allegedly showed towards women in the workplace. You know, these are the things that come out at this level. And I just, it's amazing. But they tried to jam Kamala into this race. They pushed Joe Biden out. And, you know, this is what they ended up with. Somebody who doesn't have much of a core when it comes to policy issues. But then we find out that it's worse. She's been copying other people.
Gosh, if only she had more of Martin Luther King's background, maybe she'd be a better candidate.
I understand that she has a dream that she wants to share with us. That's going to happen a little later in the campaign.
I'm all agog, but it rings a bell, I've got to say. Sean, yeah. You and I have talked about how extraordinary it is for a presidential candidate to be running away from the media to the extent that Kamala Harris has, particularly early on in her campaign. She still hasn't given one full-on press conference, which is just absolutely extraordinary. But she is now, amazingly, going on Fox News. It's the Murdoch conservative news channel. On Thursday, our time, after dodging the media for so long. What explains this change?
Desperation. I mean, it's desperation. They realize they have a problem with black men, with Arabs, Arab Americans in Michigan. They are throwing mud at the wall at this point. They announced a town hall at CNN. They're doing whatever they can. I mean, when something's not working, you've lost the momentum. Look, the NBC came out with a poll this morning. What was fascinating about this is that national polls don't matter. We vote by state, right? Coming out of the convention just over a month ago, she had a net positive, favorable, unfavorable rating. That is completely inverted. She's what we call underwater. She is thought of more unfavorably than favorably. People were, what I like to say, Kamala curious. They wanted to know a little bit more about her. They wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. They might not have been comfortable with Trump, but they wanted to at least see what she had to offer. And she has continued to disappoint them over and over again in every interview. People are realizing what you and I are talking about every time she opens her mouth, that she doesn't have a core. She doesn't believe anything. She flip-flops whenever she has to gain additional support. And people are saying, you know what? I was willing to give her a chance, but I don't believe anything that she says anymore. I don't find her authentic. And so she has moved in the opposite direction. She went in 30 days. She has gone from being net favorable to completely unfavorable. And she enters the last full 3 weeks of the campaign on her heels. They're defensive on a bunch of key components of their coalition, right? I mean, the idea that they are having to spend time and money going after black men is amazing to me at this stage of a campaign. It really shows you how bad of a candidate she is.
And Sean, I've heard you over the last couple of days in various interviews and your podcast, sounding a lot more chipper about Trump's chances, particularly when you go through those 7 battleground states that he needs to win that are the difference between the two candidates. What odds do you give Trump winning now?
So right now, I had Trump at 306 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. Last night, I went through every state. It's on my YouTube channel if people want to actually watch it state by state. I got him to 312. The individuals, I brought in people on the ground in every one of the battleground states that are some of the best people in those states politically. They are the experts. They understand the early vote, the get out the vote effort. And they have convinced me that they are ahead in every one of those battleground states. And that tracks what we're seeing from the internal polls coming out from Trump. Now, I will say this just as a caveat, is North Carolina has been ravaged by this hurricane that went through it. And there's a big X and question mark about how that's going to affect the 61% of voters that are affected by that, especially in Trump counties. That being said, Andrew, if you're at 306 or 312, you've got a lot of states to play with to ensure that you're over the 270 electoral votes. But as far as how I feel great. Donald Trump has multiple paths to 270 electoral votes. She doesn't. And that's the big difference right now. And the media is starting to wake up to the fact that Kamala Harris' joy and vibes aren't going to get him there.
No, you probably do need some policies to go with all that joy, but there you go. Sean Spicer, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Absolutely. See you next week, Andrew.